by Hashem Yahushua, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believe.
Eternal life is only for the Israelites.
That's for the Gentiles.
You see what I'm saying? Salvation, new bodies. That's not for all nations. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to make the point of the point of jealousy. Why were these Israelites so jealous? What was the contention? Like, how did that brew? And that is really how you go back into the apocryphal writings,
absolutely,
which I would like to go through before we get to the branch part.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To really set the stage of understanding the mindset that the Jews had at that time, you do have to understand what the Jews were protecting and how Gentiles became Gentiles. You know what I mean? And so one of the scriptures that I wanted to read was Second Maccabees, and then also, you know, we got First Maccabees 1. But I wanted to read Second Maccabees 6 just to kind of show an image, you know, put a picture in your mind of what led up hundreds of years of this to the stage that we have in the book of Acts, which when you continue to read Acts 13, 14, and get to 15, it got so contentious that they had to have a council. And when you get to Acts the 15th chapter, well, why was it so hot? Now, these are not just people who didn't believe in Yahushua that was having a problem with it. These were people who believed in Yahushua that was having an issue with what was going on. It wasn't just like whole ass niggas. You know, it was a whole mindset, right? So if you open up Second Maccabees chapter 6, and you go, I'm gonna start at the top and I'm gonna read quickly. Verse 1 says, "Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of the Most High, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwell in the place."
The defender of strangers, not the Israelites.
Yeah.
See? And that's idol worship. That fulfills the curse. You will be scattered amongst these nations and learn their works. Go ahead.
"The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, right? Who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places."
Right. They used the temple for harlotry. And that's what the heathen, them temple harlots, man. Jake got into that. Go ahead.
"And besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. The altar was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days, or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew."
Man.
Bro, you gotta know that.
That's an important point.
You have to know that. That's like a turning point in the movie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's a point. That's a point in the movie where if you doing something else, you gotta rewind it to make. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Just think of watching a movie.
Yeah.
You got it.
Straight up.
It says, "In the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy."
Now you got to think, this is the Greek Empire. We're reading about the Greek Empire. You got to think, at this point, Israel was totally cut off, and we'll get more, but from that point, they raised their children that way. They raised their children that way. They raised their children that way.
When you came to the shores of America on them ships, you were through bitter constraint made an American.
Timothy's father was a Greek.
Over and years over, and now you know your name is Pookie Williams on 34th Street.
Right. Live across the street from Robert Jones Jr. and them.
And if I may just land that off y'all, and when you go into that, because there was points in history where we've been infiltrated as a nation and followed those different ways and such. Because even when you go into the Grecian Empire, Ptolemy, all right, when he ruled over there in Egypt, you had those Alexandrian Jews that they brought over there from Jerusalem to follow those different ways. When you go into Antiochus and his influence, that was the hub. That was the capital where Israelites became Hellenized. When you go into history of it, you had the ones in Samaria and such. that was the point where the whole nation was completely just through. They went into the heart of the nation when they had performed this.
Right.
You know, and that was a huge influence on why Jake was Hellenized right now. You know?
And prior to that, the other captivities, you knew who you were.
Right.
We knew who we were. You see? But once they got to the point where it's like, nah, if you say you a Jew, I'm gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That changed the game.
Straight up. Straight up.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep reading this, and then, we'll make another point. In 2 Maccabees 6:8, it says, "Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. For there, it says, for there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led round about the city, they openly led them round about the city, the babes handing at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall. And others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly.
Could you imagine that?
You know,
Damn.
you hiding to do the Sabbath service.
Hide, and if you circumcise your child, they throw them off the mountain.
Throw them off. Right? It says the others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered by Philip, were all burnt together, because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. You see? All these things were happening to break us from our heritage and lineage, man.
Right.
And you know, the elder was making a point that we had made last time. Think about the current situation that we in now. In the tradition of our people, there was 3 high holy days where it was mandatory for you to go back to Jerusalem. Right? You were supposed to go back to Jerusalem basically to report in. And this kept what? This kept unity, man. This kept you signed up on the registry. Oh, who had a baby? Oh, put them on the registry. Make sure that they get that gets put in the temple. Now, such and such had a baby, got married, and such and such. You make sure to get that written down now. So why? We keep the inheritance, the lands on point. Just like when you go to your family reunion. You know, there's a couple of people in your family, your auntie, my sister, real big on making sure
the shirts and shit.
Make sure you have the shirt with the tree. You know, the Hubbards and the Williams. You know, they got all the tree on there to make sure everybody know this is that side, that's this side, this is how you got here. And you come back to the family reunion every year. To now, because what happens? You start having kids. Now you introduce your kids to great auntie Shirley, Big Shirley, Big Shirley with the foot. You know, you introduce this Big Shirley. This is my great.
You made your cake?
Yeah, you know, all that. But what happens as the generations get older? They stop going to the family reunion.
Right, that 7-Up cake.
You don't go. You don't feel like going. You rather play PlayStation.
Right.
You rather do this. And what happens? The family gets more and more broken apart. Scattered. And the actual traditions and the unit of the family breaks. But the family reunion was important. So the Israelites coming and keeping the high holy days and the feast days kept a unity and mindset within the whole nation. That was broken.
Because the commandment was for it to be from generation to generation.
That's right. And that's why the scripture is so adamant to say, if you're not willing to come to the family reunion, you cut off. If you're not willing to come to the high holy, you can't come. If you don't come to Passover, the Feast of Tabernacles, if you don't come, you was a whole ass nigga. You know what I'm saying?
You're not our.
You ain't one of us, man.
That's going to apply to the heathen in the kingdom. If you don't come, you can't. You know what I'm saying? You can't partake.
You know?
Right.
But what we're saying is that you have to understand the mindset of generation after generation after generation. Your son, they son, great grandson never came back. To the point to where now they just a full blown Greek, Gentile. Okay? Walk around probably in the gymnasium
naked.
Naked.
You gotta think, bro. Though even the Maccabees, man, they were like, y'all, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all niggas wicked.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Remember, was it Eleazar who put that dude up to death who sacrificed the swine? Mattathias. He put the dude to death who sacrificed swine in the temple, man. So there was a disdain for those who stuck to the customs even back then. Now they were going all the way off back then, and they were going off at the time of Paul. But the beauty is they had the mind to turn from those idols.
Yeah, right.
So there was always a disdain for those who stuck to the way, which would be of the southern kingdom, because the southern kingdom stayed in that region, right. And the northern kingdom through the Assyrians went what? They went all they got their ass beat. Then they came over here to the Americas. But you had Judah, Benjamin, and Levi who stuck pretty much to the temple, so to speak. That history surrounding them is what we're reading right here.
I want to read this real quick. This is from earlyworldhistory.blogpost.com. It's ancient world history, subsection Hellenization. Hellenization was the spread of Greek culture and the assimilation into Greek culture of non-Greek peoples. It was a notable trait of ancient Greek civilization, an approach to other cultures that was not merely invasive or dominant, but transformative.
Right, because I want to say this. The Israelites were not the only nation to be Hellenized.
Right.
But the Bible's focusing on the Hellenization of the Israelites, in particular the Jews, because you had Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which you had other tribes scattered as well, but it was mainly those three. But other nations were and we'll get that in First Maccabees, the first chapter, were Hellenized as well. But the Bible was focusing on the chosen seed. Go ahead.
It says, this set an example later followed by the Roman Empire, Christianity, and the British Empire, essentially establishing a framework within which much of Western history can be discussed. So the template of how to break a nigga down came from the Greeks. Okay? This is how you transform people into what you want. They learned it, right? And then the Greeks did it by bloody oppression, right? The products of culture spread by Hellenization included the Greek language and writing systems, its myths and religion, and its technology and art. And I see that currently. Not mere ideas, but practical and exploitable benefits. It says the Hellenes, or Greeks, were so called by classical writers because they were the descendants of Hellen, the son of Deucalion and Pyrrha. They were assimilators from the start. When they came to inhabit the isles and mainland of what is now Greece, they displaced the indigenous Pelagicians, Pelasgians, the Japhites, bringing with them some of their writings, language, religion, and art. The Pelasgians were unrelated to the Hellenes in any significant sense. All right?
Absolutely.
Japheth, man.
Right.
Some modern scholars, and there's a pocket of Greek history where things just drop off. They call it the Greek Dark Age. When I went back to study it. So you try to follow what happened with the Edomites, and there's these pockets of dark history, right? And it says, some modern scholars believe their language was pre-Indo-European, unintelligible to the Greeks in first contact, right? It says, the native culture was soon absorbed into that of the new arrival. I'm going to skip down. The most important period of Hellenization by far was that which transpired under the reign of Alexander the Great, extending the reach of his rule to staggering extents after his father's unification of the Greek city-states to Egypt, India, Persia, and across the eastern Mediterranean. Alexander did not limit this rule to simply military conquest and tribute collection. He integrated his army, allowing non-Greek and non-Macedonian troops in the same units as natives, and strongly encouraging intermarriage with foreign women to blur the barriers between the conquering and conquered peoples.
He does that all. He Still does.
See that? He set up schools to teach children Greek language and culture and build gymnasiums.
Ain't that happening now?
Yeah.
Because we got to think the Greeks are the beginning of the beast system.
What's the main way Jake is taught? Sports.
Yeah.
No, Jake want to be a football player, basketball. Jake's
Music too.
main
Music
thing
too.
is music and sports, entertainment. Same thing, man.
Because that's heavily tied to your culture, especially that music. And they made Jake Hellenized. Jake is being Hellenized today through music. It's a heavy part of it.
Bro,
And fraternities
Bro.
as well.
Yep.
the
Greek
way
fraternity.
that we interact with each other is based off what we see on TV and music. Women have the mindset of WAP culture. Men have the mindset of
Simp culture.
simp, you know, you used to call me on my whatever culture. All right?
It's true. And that detaches you from Yahweh Shemel Shai.
And that happened.
That happened. So you can't cut out this history. We're going into this history before we go down in Romans for a reason.
Right.
It's very important. We can't leave this out. Go ahead.
Right. It says he set up schools to teach children Greek language and culture, build gymnasiums, cultural centers associated with exercise, especially gymnastics and wrestling.
And you had to be naked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jake was just got nasty, man.
That's what gym notes means. Naked.
Naked.
Yep. Yep. It says medicine and communal bathing in the cities he conquered.
Medicine.
Yep. I will say communal bathing. That's
Yeah.
prison. That's
Everybody in the
locker
shower.
rooms.
The locker
You know what I'm
room.
saying? The locker room, the prisons, all these
Yeah.
different things, man.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep. But just like also the whole medical industry,
Yep.
right? His magic. In the cities he conquered, the gymnasium was at the center of social culture in ancient Greece.
So in the cities he conquered. You see, when you conquer a nation, you change their way of life.
Yeah.
Right. The Greek god of medicine was what? Asclepius?
Mhm.
So, Jake, you think about, you didn't know none of the stuff you know now.
Right.
Before you came into this truth on how to heal yourself.
Right.
You based healing yourself on a whole nother God.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Go ahead.
Right. It says the gymnasium was at the center of social culture in ancient Greece, much like the public houses of medieval Europe. Now, I want to skip over to jewishhistory.org. And this article is called The Hell in Hellenism. Now, when the whole thing is good. But when you skip down, I'm just going to go ahead and skip down. I advise you read the top. But skip down to where it says the Hellenists. It says, about the year 200 BCE, there arose among the Jewish population a group called Misyavim, meaning Hellenists, who adopted Greek culture as a way of life to such a degree that most invariably they gave up their Jewish culture and identity. All right? So when you hear the word Jewish, just think Israelite. They gave up their Israelite culture and identity. For instance, the Greeks were great believers in nudity. Their sports were done in the nude. Their bathhouses were attended in the nude. In the ancient world, the Jews and some Arabs were the only people who were circumcised.
Why is that? Going back to Abraham.
Yep. Because Ishmael, he circumcised Ishmael first.
Right.
Then he had Isaac and circumcised Isaac, right? Because Ishmael is a Hebrew, right? It says the Jews and some Arabs were the only people who were circumcised. Thus, if you wanted to be a good Greek, you were embarrassed to go to the bathhouse or participate in sports. So if you came out to play whatever discus game and they saw that your rod was circumcised, they would be like, kill it. To the point of kill him.
Yeah, kill him.
Damn. He's not a good Greek. All right?
That's crazy. They just out there.
Yeah.
Just out there.
You gotta think.
Because think about when you look at the Olympics, they're damn near butt naked.
In the gym, too.
They're very close to, you see the girls twirling on the thing, but you don't watch the twirl for the twirls. You watch it for that ass. Whatever their names are. They basically naked. You see everything. All right? It says, Thus, if you wanted to be a good Greek, you were embarrassed to go to the bathhouse or participate in sports. Consequently, Hellenized Jews underwent painful operations at a time with minimal anesthetics to restore their foreskin and appear Greek.
Put it back on.
Damn, that's crazy.
You know, sewing meat back on.
That's disgusting.
Where they get the meat at.
Just
right?
to be normal, to fit into the culture of the
They cut
time.
it off when you was 8 days old. Where you get it from?
Where you get it from?
It says, imported along with the Greek language,
You probably use
customs and sports were Greek idols and modes of worship. Temples to the Greek gods and statues of Zeus littered the countryside. Each Greek home had its own set of idols, a patron god custom made for the family, as well as a whole set of sacrificial rites. Worst of all, Greek strongholds embraced all the terrible moral looseness of the Greek world. As time passed, more and more Jews not only spoke like Greeks, but took on their customs, attitudes, and behaviors, which on so many levels were antithetical to the values of the Israelites. Estimates are that 30 to 40% of the Jewish population became Hellenists. Most of the upper class was simply swept away by this tide of Hellenist thought. Some were no doubt simply ignorant of Israelite life and tradition. Others, however, became vicious self-haters. The Greeks found many willing collaborators among the Jews in their attempt to eradicate Judaism, being Israelite, and install the more enlightened pagan culture to theirs in Israel. These Hellenist Jews hated their brethren and openly sided with the enemies of Israel who attempted to destroy the Israelite nation and faith.
Same thing happening today.
Yep.
Right? They hated themselves for being Israelites and resorted to things like painful cosmetic surgery, not only to blend in better with the Greeks.
Ain't that happening now? Look at Little Kim, Michael Jackson, Sammy Sosa.
Come on.
What are they trying to mimic? They want to look like Esau.
Right?
Nothing
This
to do
is
with the son.
Hellenization. But that it makes you a Gentile. They made themselves into Gentiles. They became as Gentiles.
Right.
These are the people who began to wake up to like, oh, I'm tripping.
Gotcha.
This is the truth.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
1 Corinthians 12:2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led.
Bro, imagine that you sewed back on a foreskin on your rod. Then you see your house make someone who can't walk. And you start listening to the sermons that surrounded that. And going through the scrolls with the disciples and prophets that were surrounding and going in the scroll. You're like,
Right.
this is the Savior.
This is it. You heard the teachings, or you heard the teachings of the disciples and the apostles as they went out.
As they went out. And you start believing, but you were in the Greek customs. You at that time, you shaved half your head off. You had a Jupiter doll in your house. You was tripping.
I got a quick preach.
Just like when you came into the truth, what happened? Did you not go extreme?
Yes, sir.
Did you not throw out all the pork in your house? Tell your auntie
said
stop
we gonna
eating
do
it?
that.
Yeah. Didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Didn't you go to everybody you was at the barbershop talking loud as hell,
Isaiah 30.
telling them that they going off? You woke up. You saw the answer. And you wanted everybody to know. You started confessing. That's what was happening.
That's right.
All of us did that, man. I know I did.
That's prophecy.
You know what I'm saying? I was arguing like a mugger with my family about Christmas.
Real quick, I gotta bring
You
it
know?
up.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah chapter 30 and 20. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner anymore, but thine eyes shall see thine teachers, and thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, This is the way, walk ye in it. When you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left, and ye shall defile also the covering of the graven images, and the ornament of molten images, and thou shalt cast them away as a mistress cloth.
You gonna cast it away like, ugh. You gonna put off them ways, man. All of us, when we first learned about this, you started putting off those ways. All those ways that you knew was against what the Most High wanted, you start putting it off. Right?
Yep.
That's right.
That's what that's talking about, casting away as a menstruous cloth. Okay? You got a point, Shar?
Yeah, I got a quick precept. This is Galatians 1, starting at verse 15. And it reads, I'm going to start at verse 14, actually. And profited in the Jews' religion above my equals in mine own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers. Because when you go into Paul came out of that sect of the Jews that were the Pharisees, the circumcision, that would heavily push the law. And when you go into those, the fathers of them, those are the Maccabees. You know, not that they were wicked, obviously they were righteous, but when you go into that history of what had taken place, when you read Maccabees, when you go into the history afterwards, you have a period of time that was called the Hasmonean Dynasty. And then when the Hasmonean Dynasty was at the forefront, that was those descendants of the Maccabees that were in power, that were kings in Jerusalem. And those were actually Levites. So when it comes to the law, they pushed the law heavily, and then they heavily influenced the land by the law. So when you get the Pharisees and the Sadducees and such, that was that sect of individuals that was heavily zealous in that law.
They made it.
They made it.
They made it through wars and wars and wars. These were those sects of the remnants of Judah and Levi that they made it.
Right.
So they were protecting something that was major.
Right. Yeah. Hosea 11:12. Ephraim compasseth me about with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. But Judah yet ruleth with God and is faithful with the saints.
That's it. That's that
They
zeal.
preserved the culture.
Yep.
So you got to see the zeal that Paul had.
What was that you just read?
Hosea 11:12.
Okay.
This is Galatians chapter 1, verse 15. But when it pleased the Most High, who separated from me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace to reveal his son in me. You brought up the point earlier going into how, we were used as those vessels, loosely paraphrasing, we was used as those vessels to push Yahushua. And Paul, being one that was so zealous in the law of that sect of the Pharisees, that the Lord used him to go unto those Israelites that were Hellenized in those Greek ways to show a statement. He used somebody that was way more zealous in the law than even those that follow Yahushua to teach those different Israelites that didn't know they were Israelites.
Paul called hell.
Man,
I'm talking about even from those who believed in Yahushua. They made him offer a sacrifice just to prove he wasn't speaking against the law. I'm telling you, man, like Acts 21, he caught a lot of hell for his position, man.
That's right.
You got to understand the mindset. That's why we're going into this history.
Bro, the Most High humbled Paul. He was a Pharisee.
right.
Yeah.
Going to the Gentiles. You know how weird that probably was for him? To see what he was seeing? Like,
Right.
you know?
Before Yahushua came on the scene, everything was temple. That's your access.
Yes.
You know?
Paul was put out there.
Yeah.
This is Galatians 1:16. To reveal his son in me. What better example to use than Paul? It says to reveal his son in me that I might preach him among the heathen. And those are those Israelites that were scattered among the heathen.
Man.
Tobit 13:3.
Yup. And it says immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Was that going into the circumcision? That was the big argument back then. The Lord used somebody of the circumcision to teach the uncircumcised. You can see why he got so much flack from those Jews that were so zealous in the law, because he was among them at a point in time.
Right. Even when the Lord came to Ananias was like, "You sure about this dude, man? You know what I'm saying?" And the Lord was like, "Nah, he's a chosen vessel. I'm going to use him." And then from that point on, it was on with Paul.
Now let's get some more of this history. We'll get a little bit of Maccabees, and we got to get back into Romans.
Absolutely. This will set the stage for that in Romans.
Right.
Going back into JewishHistory.org, the Hell and Hellenism, I'm down basically at the bottom. It says the Greeks found many willing collaborators among the Jews in their attempt to eradicate being an Israelite and install a more enlightened pagan culture of theirs in Israel. The Hellenist Jews hated their brethren and openly sided with the enemies of Israel who attempted to destroy the Jewish nation and faith. They hated themselves for being Israelites and resorted to things like painful cosmetic surgery, not only to blend in better with the Greeks, but as a sign of defiance in their attempt to remove any trace of being an Israelite from their body. Naturally, the victory of the Maccabees over the Greeks, it says, which we'll discuss next, is a great disappointment to them.
Right.
All right?
Yep. Now let's get first Maccabees. Shar had it, but
The first one.
Yeah, I got it.
let's get somebody to move first.
First one.
We'll start at, get the part with Alexander and Antiochus, and we'll get that part how they forsook the covenant. Then we go jump down to around 40 something.
All right.
Then we'll get back to Rome.
First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 9, it says, and after his death, talking about Alexander, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth.
Now, when Alexander was on the scene, real quick, he didn't really persecute the Jews like that. He allowed them to keep their customs, culture. He was like, whatever. He was a little intrigued. The hell didn't come until after the real hell didn't come until after he died, and you had 4 generals, Lysimaeus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Out of the Seleucid Empire came Antiochus, who we're getting ready to read. That's when the true hell came upon the Jews to separate themselves from that culture. Go ahead.
Daniel prophesied that.
Yep.
And then taking the Apocrypha out, that's what I'm saying. Daniel prophesied what was taken out.
Right.
So with it being added back through the Spirit, that's how everything come back together, you know?
Right.
Now, this is First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 10. It says, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, like we just read in that article, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So the Greeks was what?
Yeah.
Killing babies, chopping people up, boiling people. And I'm talking about in the temple, that cauldron. When you talk about they had a cauldron filled with abominable things, there was people in them cauldrons. They was boiling people. Now we did a lesson that showed you on Conan the Barbarian. You know, when they had the temple harlots and they had the thing to it, it shows you in Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, they pulling hands out, putting it in bowls, and people just eating on the hand like drinking, you know.
Man.
Then go get some temple box, like it ain't nothing. Get some of that cauldron, you know. You go get some of that hand stew. There's a bitch over there to the left. She got that good Dagon's box. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Go into that cauldron.
Go ahead, Chan.
This is Jeremiah 1:13. And it reads, and the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying, what seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. And that seething pot is that boiling pot, which Jake was involved in pretty much. And that toward the north is going into, namely, Babylon, but ultimately going into the heathenistic mind that Jake was going to have being scattered among the heathen. You know? It was going to lead up to that pretty much. That was it on that precept.
All right. Going back to First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 11. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Okay? Let's see.
Did they forsook the covenant?
Yeah, here you go. This is good. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. Gymnasiums, right?
Yep.
And made themselves uncircumcised.
See that? Made themselves uncircumcised. So this is when you got to know this in order to open the New Testament
They
and
were
read about the
already
uncircumcised.
circumcised.
Right.
They were making themselves uncircumcised.
Uncircumcised.
Tripping.
That's hella tripping. Yeah.
Yep.
That's hella unclean.
Tripping, bro.
I never.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah.
And it's probably a dude. It's probably a dude who
That's
had the
what it
meat. Like I got some of that meat to put back on.
Yeah, real
I got that circumcision.
I got that circumcision.
Right, and
meat.
it was matching
I got
color and
that-
everything.
I got that. Yeah, bro. They had the weave.
Yep.
Bro, they had the different colors of the foreskin meat.
Yep.
So
Salvation
you
being
go sew it
medicine.
on.
Right.
Bro, you know Jay gonna make a business out of it, bro. So now before you go to the gymnasium, they got uncircumcised meat.
Yeah.
You can go buy.
Yeah. Now jump down to 41.
That's crazy.
Man, when you think about it, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
Man, that's
So you got to think, Jake raised their children like this.
Yeah.
So when you get to the time where Yahushua came on the scene, the Roman Empire, the disciples, that's their children.
Yeah.
They're Israelites, but they're in a total detached state. But you had those who stuck to the temple, and they were looking at them like there is no way, because according to the law, if you didn't circumcise yourself, you cut off.
Right.
That's Genesis 17.
I got it. Genesis 17 and 14. And the uncircumcised man-child whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people, for he have broken the covenant. Even if you didn't keep the Sabbath. If you polluted the Sabbath, you cut off. You're not an Israelite. So we need what? The mercies of David.
That's right. That's right.
We need the mercy that Abraham got.
Leviticus 23, you can read that. Is it Exodus 12?
What for about the Passover?
Yeah. But it'll say it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't come, if you don't have the Passover, you through.
Certain way.
Yeah, I want to say it's Leviticus 23, Exodus 12.
Right. This is the Numbers 9 and 13. But the man that is clean and is not on a journey and forbear to keep the Passover, even that same soul shall be cut off from among his people.
Look at that.
Because he brought not the offering of the Yahweh in his appointed season. So do you realize the sin we're dealing with if we base everything off that first covenant? Yeah. There is no way you're going to get back in. And see, those high-minded Jews were looking at those Gentiles like, nope. But let's get 41. We're going to read down a little more history. Then we go now when we jump into Romans. You see the tediousness?
Right.
Yeah.
That, and the scriptures say the men of the Lord are curious of particulars.
Right.
We have to go through this. We can't just jump into Romans 11 and think you're going to understand what these things are meaning when you read it. We got to break it down. Go ahead.
And really, if you learn it, you should be taking these little precepts and going and reading the whole. Just go read the whole Maccabees, man.
Get the whole history.
You need to read the whole. If you ain't read them, that's a movie.
Yeah.
The Maccabees. That's like a series. That's like a you got the Avengers series where you learned about Iron Man, and then you put the story together with them, and you learn all that. That's what you have to do. It's a whole series.
You gotta splice it back together.
Yeah, you gotta splice it back together.
It's a Maccabees movie on YouTube.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's proof the true Jews ain't ruling, because that would be a box office hit.
Yeah.
If we were in
It's just a beautiful story.
That's a whole beast taken out of the Daniel 7. That's a beast that's taken away.
Right, you can't just throw that.
That's 1 out of 4 huge periods of time that impacted the world.
Right, let's get back.
First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 41, it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, and all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
That's what's being set up now as well. This is the New World Order.
Yep.
Go ahead. That's what Nimrod did.
Exactly.
Nimrod was the same thing, basically. And this is the way you're going to follow. Go ahead.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
See that? Many also of the Israelites. See, a lot of these nations were Hellenized, but the Bible was focusing on the Israelites, man.
Right.
Go ahead.
Consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers to Jerusalem and to the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Right, you need to get Maxine, nigga.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically.
Come on.
It said many, not all. You know what I'm saying? It said many of Israel, not all of them.
Right, because there's always a remnant. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, straight up.
Go ahead.
And forbid burnt offerings.
Which is our connection to the Heavenly Father.
Right.
Go ahead.
And sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and feastable days.
Cut
festival
off.
days.
You cut off.
You ain't come back for the family reunion.
Yep.
You didn't come and reconnect and unite. You just was out there.
Yeah, out there.
All right? And you just became Junebug in him. That's what happens.
You're not our people.
Right.
Yeah.
We know you Israelite, but the mindset is you're not our people. You're cut off.
Yep.
There's no way you getting access back to the Heavenly Father.
The registry was completely gone.
Bro, after the,
Registry, what's
the
that?
transatlantic slave trade,
Yeah, registry. What's
That was
that?
the 3 days and that 3 days and a half.
Man. You gotta know that.
devastating.
Cut.
Absolutely.
Man, call all y'all about
Totally
I was shot, man.
Straight up,
Devastating.
bro.
Right.
It says, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
Man.
Jump to verse 40. Where you at?
48.
Okay, just read 48, 49.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised,
That's it.
and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness
Children.
and profanation.
See, they go after the children so that they can control the generation.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You see?
Yep.
Straight up.
And what say now here you are growing up in the church celebrating Thanksgiving and whatever all these you know what I'm saying? That's what it is once you fast forward up to us. You see? I would say we had to find once we found out we was Israelites, that's what I'm saying, we had to find out we was Israelites. You know what I'm saying? This is the beginning of that. I'm gonna say this was hundreds of years, man.
Right.
You know?
Right. Now go read. Let's read what they were going through. Go ahead.
First Maccabees 1:60, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks.
Showing you that's Esau. He hung them by the neck.
Bro,
Man.
same thing.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Man,
It said the women circumcised the children. I mean, the men was already gone. Same thing now. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
that's heavy.
Oh boy.
So we see the history, and there's so much more.
Absolutely.
There's so much more. But that you got to know that that happened.
Yep.
That's a part of the history. You got to know if you're an Israelite, especially if you're gonna get into the true understanding of the Bible. Now, let's go back to Romans, because now we're at the point of Paul, who was set up to what? Teach
Right.
those scattered Israelites.
They had went through all of that.
Right, that went through that. They're offspring of these Israelites, okay, who totally fell away. Like your father didn't raise you as no Israelite.
Yeah.
You was chopping your pan sausage up in the grits
Yep.
with the birthday hat on, going all the fucking way off.
Yep. Some of y'all just got through doing the Junebug challenge
Right,
on TikTok,
right,
and you ran into this video.
right.
And now you here with your homies saying, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
And one guy in the group is actually listening.
Absolutely.
You are who we talking to. Your friends, they just gonna keep doing the Junebug dance. We don't care about them.
Right.
We talking to you.
Right. And you now